There we are.
The broadcast is live.
So you were saying about this brochure just now, just to read that a little bit again.
Yeah, so I wanted to write this little booklet for myself and just capture things that are important to me, rather than an audience, and then going into the process of whether it's worthwhile for the audience, or those are all distractions. So I'm just are you creating because you want recognition and you want to be seen as creative or creating, or are you creating for the joy of creating for you? It's a much cleaner thing to do, right?
I think it's the second one, and then it finds its own.
Yeah.
It will go to wherever it goes. You know, it might be that you start off writing this, whatever it is, a brochure or an article or whatever, and it ends up growing, you know, and begins to have a life of its own, could grow into all sorts of different things.
Yeah, quite. Or not.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so and then I thought, you know, what shall I give it a name, and I'll call it The Dreamer. And I was actually, you know, I was actually washing my hands, and I thought, yeah, this, who's it for, you know? And I thought, yeah, it's for Otto, you know. It's an ode to my son, who reminds me so much of who I essentially am, and what I often feel I need to recover. Because the beauty about Otto is that he's a dreamer, and he's terribly hurt by everybody trying to pull him down. Say, do this, do that, make your homework, you know, behave, be like everybody else. You know, he's just, and you don't want to kill that quality in somebody. You know, I mean, he's the only person that I know in my direct environment. He sits on the couch and say, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm sitting." I mean, how good is that? I'm sitting. What are you doing sitting? Go and do something. My mother would always say, sitting. You can hang up the washing. Go wash up. Have you cleaned up your room? If you've done your homework?
There's plenty of something to do. Do you think I got to where I am now by sitting?
Yeah. Exactly.
Sounds like I'm in life being.
Amazing. And I realized this a while ago. I was it's so amazing. And he's always, you know, if you say, "Do you want to do something with me?" He pretty much always says, "Yeah." "Do you want me to read a book to you?" "That'd be lovely." "Do you want to go for a walk?" "Oh yeah, be nice." I mean, how great is it when you can just think that everything that comes to you is kind of nice? And really be appreciative. He's not a pleaser. He's just very happy to be with people, or to be alone. So I'd realized that, and I walked into the living room again this week, and I said, "What are you doing?" "Just sitting here." Wow. I think that's really beautiful.
It sounds like the idea of a muse that inspires creativity. It sounds like your muse.
He's my muse.
You know, to see him, or to think about him, or to speak with him inspires you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we all need that. Maybe we all need one of those.
Muses. I guess we do.
It's not a term you hear very much about. Like the idea somehow is it's all supposed to come from you.
From the internal source.
Yeah.
But this is the loss of the divine. If you kill God, why rely on anyone else? If you can do it without God, you can do it without everybody else. Yeah, this is difficult. I was reading a poem by Wendell Berry. Have you heard of him?
Yeah. Which poem?
I forget the title. Let me see if I can find it. The Peace of Wild Things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Wow.
Beautiful.
I never heard of him. I had never heard of him.
Really opens my heart.
And there's so much in that. You know, we all lie awake at night. You know, we sleep light, and then thoughts enter into our sleep. Oh, we worry about all these things that we can't. And without forethought of grief, you know, we are spending so much time talking about things that are not reality,
Yeah.
you know, and that will never transpire.
Worry.
Yeah, worry. Total nonsense, you know. Well, yeah, well, you know, if my kid crossed the road, he could get run over. If I don't pay my taxes, I could go to jail. If I don't get a new client, I'll have a problem. Yeah, but have you got a problem now? No. Actually, I've never had a problem in my entire life. But I spent a lot of time worrying about, you know.
Or something, what we call a problem is something happens that requires some adjustment, or some, oh, what do I do about this? Or what do I say about this? Or how do I adjust around this? And I think the fear is that you won't manage. I won't have the capacity to deal with whatever comes.
Yes, it's like a lack of trust in yourself.
And the lack of trust that the support will come to you.
Yeah.
The help will come to you from wherever, in the form of from other people or from.
Yeah, I love the concept of providence.
Say that again.
I love the concept of providence, right? And I can really appreciate that people said, you know, the Lord will provide, and what was the other one? You know, God never sends you more than you can carry. But yeah, that's always true.
In this we flow process I was telling you about earlier, where people connect and then help one another to create and do their work, there's an idea, what if everything that you need was right? What if you had access to it now? Everything that you need. And just the idea, just opening up to the idea, means that you open to receive what you need. Whereas if you're thinking all the time that it isn't, there is no, you have to do everything yourself and you're separate, and it could be coming to you all the time in all kinds of different, it could be shouting in your face and you won't see it because you don't believe that it's there for you. So I love that simple pointer. What if everything that you need is you have access to right now? And that doesn't necessarily mean that you can see it straight away, but that you have access. It's like just saying that you have, admitting that you have access is kind of opening doors somehow.
And it's so simple to access that realization, and yet we lose it so often.
Yeah.
And how come? That you have these moments of complete clarity and you can be with that. And then tomorrow morning I wake up and I'm all over the show. Lost.
I think that's why we there's all these traditions of practice, early in the morning, of doing something early in the morning that at least points you vaguely in a direction that opens you to that. Or community, of being in relationship with other people and speaking about what's happening with you, so that you're open to input from people that know you and love you, or even strangers. You're just opening to this, the reminder of which way to walk, the reminder of which in what direction the answer is, has a chance to come again.
Well, and maybe there, the topic of innovation / online activity and repetition come together. In the sense, you said doing things early in the morning, each morning, this, and we have very little of that. So I'm trying to develop this. Well, for the last year, I've been doing either swimming at the end of every afternoon, and now I've moved then to doing flow exercise every morning in the park at 6 o'clock on weekdays. And this repetition is very nourishing. So you do exactly the same thing every day, and yet it's never the same. The outsider who walks past, there he is again doing exactly the same thing. But my experience has a massive granularity. It's a kaleidoscopic experience. Like, oh, this exercise was very easy today, or I enjoyed that a lot, or oh, I kind of didn't get the order right, or the sun came around the trees because that we're getting closer came close to the summer solstice, so I started in the shade, and then as I opened my eyes again. So there's these endless details, and then the coming together for people who don't live in a community physically. Maybe that online gathering piece.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to learn about how to be in an online gathering that gives energy in the way that, there are certain ways, or if a bunch of people come into a room or into an office, there's certain things that you do that support something happening. And there are certain things that are not going to support it. Somebody comes in the room and just talks about all their personal problems to the point that nothing can happen, nothing else can happen, or I don't know, there's nobody looking after the dynamic. In the same way on the online space, we have to learn what is the absolute best way to do an online gathering, so that everybody is included and everybody's participation is welcomed, and it's held in a certain way that is really creative and productive and feels good. And so I think some of that, talking about repetition, one of the things that came to my mind just then was we have all these little rituals in life that we do. You meet somebody new, you look them in the eye, you shake hands. We need also to create and discover what are the rituals, little rituals that help support, if we're going to spend a lot of time online, what works? What opens up this? What I feel like is a really delicate. It's a delicate environment. What's holding this together is our attention. The fact that we are paying attention to one another and listening.
Yeah, and when you come together with a group that is the same all the time, the meeting etiquette or becomes tacit, right? Because everybody kind of knows this is how we do it. This is the most effective way. And if there's one newcomer, that person is sort of also tacitly hosted because they will feel. But if you're new and you're working every time with new groups, you kind of have to find an effective way to explain this is the most pleasant way for all of us to come together, and this is it was called the meeting hygiene. You know, if you talk too much and you take time from other people. So when we do a check-in or a check-out, say, we've got 20 minutes for a check-out. So you can talk for 5 minutes and we're 10. So that means that you've taken a minute from 4 other people.
Yeah.
If you're only interested in hearing yourself, please do this. But if you don't, try to really be concise about what you say, because it's in service to the collective. So you try to bring in this awareness. I'm sometimes a little bit harsh, but that is the essence of it, right?
It is. And also everything that I bring in this space is in our space. If I bring my tea, if I bring my hamburger, if I bring my dog, if I bring it's like it's in now all of that is in our space. And, how much of that would you actually do if we were in an office or in a workshop space or a retreat center or whatever? You wouldn't. It's like there's etiquette that I feel are still learning about what makes this space dynamic and amazing. It's what we do, but it's also the things that we don't do, that we keep clear.
Yeah.
We also, I was very cautious about trying to work with my work, which is embodied, all kinds of embodied work. And how is that possible to do online? And I was very resistant for years and years. And then because of this situation the last few months, I decided to try and learn how to do it. And it basically comes down to exactly the same issue. Many of our problems are because most of us are living in our heads most of the time and are disconnected from our bodies, we're disconnected from our feelings, or we're conditioned to not include those parts of ourselves, to hide things, to ignore intuition. And when you start to include all of those things, like I include, what am I sensing and feeling now? Where is the energy and the flow and the excitement? When everybody starts to hone those skills, then we shift the feel of the space.
Yeah.
And then also to move, to not just be sitting in a space. We can be connected online and be standing around. We don't even need to be in view of the camera all the time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of possibilities that are really, really effective and powerful, and come up against the same some of the same resistance that people have to doing anything which is not just talking. It's like yeah, but now let's get to the real thing. and actually, when we drop the idea that everything that we need is coming through that mind, only through the mind and only through talking, that we include more, that's a big leap and a big shift that I feel we need to move into. We need to include more in every sense, include everybody and everything, and
yeah, maybe online meetings create a sort of a regression, because we are more comfortable connecting and doing something a bit more physical and playful when we're together, and now we've gone into this new paradigm of being online. And when I start coaching, I very often have a candle here, and I say, just so you know, you can't see, but I'm lighting a candle and I'm putting it here for you, but there's a light burning for you. Or I take my symbols and I say, let's just take a moment, and and people are a little bit, but and I say, what didn't cost us anything? Only took 30 seconds, and it's great, isn't it? Feels great. Maybe a bit strange for the first time, but it's great, isn't it? People, there's nothing wrong with that, right? And I'm not even doing physical things. I'm just starting a conversation and just trying to create a little bit like a cut from what they were doing before.
Yeah.
And then I try to ask people, what was that like? And of course, they don't want to insult you, so they usually say, "Yeah, it was quite nice. It was quite nice." Yeah, you could do that, when you talk to someone. Like you see them thinking, "I'm not so sure about that," but it's bringing that into the space that is, and it is quite important for me. I do it for them, but I do it because I want to give it to them. You know, it feels to me that that is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Because I needed to do a better job, to really be with them and to create something that is us in this cocoon, in this bubble, where I'm commit myself to listening to them for that 90 minutes that we are together. And I'm not so versatile in creating different engagement things, but maybe all of us, maybe I should also do more physical things, you know, by saying to people, why don't we get up first and have a little bit of a shakeout, or why don't we just stand on one leg for a little bit and see how concentrated we are, or just to get a little bit out of this. People are.
I mean, I would say there's a couple of things to that. Like, we don't all have to do what everybody else does or whatever we hear everybody else doing. If you feel that what the space that you're creating works, then it works. That's one thing, and the other is that I forgot what I was going to say. It was a clever thought, but it's gone.
We'll come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's.
I know. I know what I was going to say is the effect of the online space is it has the effect of pulling us forward. So if you notice, most of the time, or I notice, I'm pulled forward into the computer towards you. So the more of my attention and focus comes forward to you, the tendency will be that I lose touch with where I'm sitting. I lose touch with this physical environment, and that equals I lose touch with my physical apparatus, my body, which is providing information all the time. Mm-hmm. So whatever way that it helps a person or a group to keep including the body, might be running around in the space, might be movement or dance or whatever, or it might be some kind of reminder to check in with your own body and how are you feeling now, and what's your gut response to that now, what happens inside you now when I say that or when we talk about this. All of those things direct the person to include more than the mental reflection bit.
Yeah.
And in terms of what we were talking about earlier, is like that everything, what if the space already had everything? What if everything was there for you? When I encourage people to really acknowledge the space that they're in and everything that is there, like as a miracle, that everything, all these things are here, there's something else opens up, you know, it's to do with gratitude that I'm in this place and I'm surrounded by, you know, beautiful paintings that I didn't even make. And all kinds of things are here. They're giving something. And, you know, for example, when we work outside in an ongoing, in a course or a retreat or something, and you invite people to go for a walk and just open their senses, they will start to receive information and messages and notice things because they've been directed to notice in a certain way, to at least be open and take things in. The same thing can happen when you're sitting in your own house. It's just like something, we just switch something on. It's like, okay, on. It's like switch to receive or something.
Well, as you say it, you start to sort of look around you at all these things that are around you that came also together as a part of your biography. These things, many of them came to me, right? And they were given to me, or I collected them, or I recently put them here, or there's a painting on the wall, or there's something in a frame on the wall that belongs to Hendrik. There's a bunch of beautiful flowers from somebody's garden that was put here. There's a wedding present. There's a desk that I bought at the secondhand shop that I'm really was so pleased that I found it. It's got had a previous life. There's a desk that my father made that the printer is on, and it's really my place.
And when you notice those things, how do you feel?
Very happy, of course. Yeah, very well satisfied, very content. Not happy, not in terms of, not in the sense of being elated, but grateful.
Yeah.
That I'm so rich, and that actually I don't need anything else because I've already created what I want. Yeah. And that gives that does settle me. So it means that I also realize I don't really need to go anywhere, which helps me, I guess, better to be more in the now, to be present, without, as you say, getting into this virtual space and leaving this physical body disconnected.
Yeah. My experience is that when I do that or other people do that, one of the things that happens is we get relaxed. It's like, yeah. So it's kind of, yeah, all is well. Here's my sofa. Here's my drink. Here's the plants. It just is a kind of unravels a bit that what you just said, needed to go somewhere or get something else. It unravels the idea that there's something better somewhere else that I'm struggling towards.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it was, and that brings me to the point that also with choices in life, we're struggling towards something because we are securing our future. We're doing something so that we may be safe later. Yeah. And so we forego living now so that we may be safe later, which is tomorrow, which tomorrow never comes, right? So we're all saving it for tomorrow, and we keep on saving till tomorrow is our funeral, right? And so the courage to discern what is the right thing to do, and do that without fear of what might come tomorrow, because you cannot control in any way what's coming tomorrow, right? We think we can, but of course there are some things that in a linear way could kind of, if I consistently don't pay the taxes, the bailiffs will come. But I mean, really, in the grand scheme of things, there's very little that you can do. But what you can do completely controls what you do now. You can decide that now. Move left, move right, but take also some time to sit still and just think about what, before we do anything, what is the right thing to do. And if it's avoiding something that could potentially happen to us in the future, it's not really the right thing to do, because it's kind of disconnected from now. It's very paradoxical.
It's an abstraction, some kind of abstraction, mental. It's an idea.
Yeah. And I think there's a big need for people to come together to tackle that difficulty and that confusion and this uncertainty, and maybe this search for meaning. I think for me, it's search for meaning. I find it very difficult to connect to securing the future. If I'm too busy with that, I start feeling unsettled and unhappy because it's not real.
So then sounds like you're asked to trust that something's going to evolve, or you'll know what to do, or you'll deal with whatever happens.
Yeah, and I know that I've decided to live like that, to be attentive to providence, because it's not laziness, it's not passiveness, it's just being very aware of what the cosmos is throwing at you. And when it's throwing you something good, don't look the other way, catch it, you fool. When you're being saved from a sinking ship, but every time God sends you a helicopter a dinghy, a boat, and you say, no, I'm busy with the boat right now. And when you drown, you say, well, why didn't you save me? So I sent you a helicopter, right? So this is very often we have lots of opportunities to get out of a pickle or a predicament, but we don't see it.
And I also think that in that story, it starts with the helicopter, or it starts with sometimes what it starts with is something very small.
Yeah.
It's not even as obvious as the helicopter. It starts with, write that one email, or the one thing. There's a little voice in you that just says, it's like, just attend to this one thing. Just check this one thing here.
Yeah, and you see with people who go through burnout can often pinpoint that, and there was something niggling in my mind that what I was doing was not right, and then it became very big, and then it blew up, and then I knew back then something was already telling me I wasn't doing the right thing, but I ignored it and I ignored it and I ignored it, right? And because we are not in that moment, we are not able to see it. I don't think we're consciously ignoring the signs. We very often unconsciously, but in hindsight we can take it back. So it was sort of under the surface. We could kind of see it, but we were not in the frame of mind to really
can't really receive it, because it's maybe coming in. It's not the answer you wanted, or it's not coming in the form that you expected.
Don't they, in Irish, they have this concept of thin places, right? So where there's the proximity to the divine, and I'm probably not doing it justice, but these thin places, I sort of imagine when you didn't do or don't do anything with them, or you look back and you see you didn't do anything, so you were probably near a thin place. Somebody was saying, "Here, I've got some truth for you. Do something." That, oh no, I'm too busy, right? And so you walk past beautiful doors seemingly in the darkness, while there were beams of light coming out of all these small apertures, doors that were a little bit open.
And what about this? You were saying something about repetition. Is it just the idea of ritual that you're talking about there, or are you talking about something else? Or are you interested about something else?
Well, repetition is that what I see in my work is that we, with my partners, we were very often designing new things, and I thought, we're just doing this to wow the client, because we don't really want to do the same thing again, right? And then we have a different activity in a different environment, and a different this and a different that, but of course, in the end, it all boils down to increasing awareness, improving the human condition of the organization so that there's better collaboration, and then ultimately the client wants more performance and the shareholder wants a better return for their investment. So that's why you are given the work by your client. And then I'm very interested in the monastic traditions, and when I read especially how the Benedictines lead this life, they are constantly polishing this stone that is their soul into perfection, and they do exactly the same thing every week. They sing all the psalms, and next week they do the same thing all over again, and the week after all over again, and for 1500 years they've been doing the same and the same thing, and all that they are interested in stability and community, obedience. And so what's next week? Same thing. I don't like it. Well, sorry, right? And so if this is so successful, why, I'm asking me, should we have the courage? So what do you have to offer? Well, same as last time. So it's what you showed on your one video that you showed as an illustration, or the one story you've got on your website. Yeah, that's what we do. What do we do? We sit down and we ask, where am I at? What is our situation? What do we understand of the situation? What do we think of it? What's our judgment of that? And how will we act going forward? So these are the 4 steps. Yeah, we always do the 4 steps. Don't you think you should do it differently? No. Or then we go somewhere else. Well, you should go and do that.
Do they actually say to you? Do they actually say that to you? Why don't you do
Of course
something?
not. Because I haven't got the balls to say that I'm doing the same thing, right? So I'm trying to go in this process where I'm more outspoken about it. Of course, we have always worked with Theory U, and we're designing a slightly more spiritual evolution or development path for that. But it's the same thing. I mean, all of these things are the same. You need to perceive your situation. You need to understand the situation. Then you have to have an opinion or a judgment. How is it impacting us? And based on that understanding and judgment, you choose an action. And so this is one approach. I think the Jesuits always say understanding, awareness, ingenuity in action. Heroic action. That's all the same stuff. You need to become aware. You need to be compassionate to self and others. You need to find a creative solution. That's all well and wonderful, but that doesn't change anything. Then you've got to step in. So you have to say to clients, okay, well, of course we can go to a different space, or we can give you a different inspiration. Of course, that's fine. But essentially, it's much richer if you keep most of it the same.
Yeah, I noticed that there are in some aspects of the work that I do with people who've done processes again and again in the work that I do, and I can see that this thing comes to them comes kind of across the face. It's like, oh yeah, we know this, and so they go into it with a different, less open approach because they think that they know it. So and I also was in a monastic tradition for a little while, and it's not just the doing of these different practices, but being reminded all the time of how to do the practices, so that you don't think all the time, yeah, I did it yesterday, I did it, I already know it, I already got the message, I already know. But to do even the simplest thing, like saying hello and shaking hands with somebody, it's like you can do the same gesture, but to do it with attention now and presence now, because we're not yesterday, we're meeting again now, or we're doing this thing again now. Even if you've done it 1,000 times, it's still new. This moment is new.
And so your opportunity, by your example, could be to do it with a higher quality of attention than the day before, right?
Yeah.
So I think that in a way we're lying, excuse me, to our clients when we say, well, we're doing something new, or to ourselves, we're doing something new for the client because otherwise they won't connect with it. Or to challenge them to the concept of, and say the concept of mastery is repetition, because you've done it once, but you weren't very good. Now you want to move on to the next thing, but you haven't really finished. It's like saying, oh, you're not interested in the yellow belt anymore, but you want to practice for the green belt. But okay, here you go onto the green belt, and in 6 weeks you'll have a black belt. That'll be great. And then it turns out that they are useless. Right? So that this if we know that submitting to the slow cycles towards mastery, then we also have to sell that, offer that, and say no, we have to stick with that, and that is the repetition that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I get it. But even the professionals that you're speaking to have all had to go through that process in their own study and work. It's like you don't begin a degree in engineering and just you do something on the first day and you've got it. It's like you have to do it and do it and do it and do it and work it and work it and work it and work it until you've mastered it enough that somebody will say, okay, now you've mastered it enough that you have a degree.
Yeah.
And I think this idea that everything has to be new and whizzy and wonderful is this like stupid, immature, people can get blinded by gimmicks that sound like shortcuts. Yeah, you just do this thing and we're going to get you there faster.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and it makes people unhappy because they are constantly offered something new that's going to be more exciting than the last thing, and it never is, because you can't make things more exciting ad infinitum, because it's more superficiality. So well, yeah, it was different, but I could see it was kind of the same, and well, and Alan Watts said it's all wretch and no vomit. There's the promise of tomorrow will be better. Yeah, but it is not, unless you submit to choosing to do the right thing and stick with that. And so doing the right thing, I mean, and I see the same thing in companies. I mean, it's not, companies do things that are not right. So Gilead is this company that sold its entire medical supply to the United States, and it's a coronavirus repressant drug or something. And everybody's slating Donald Trump for buying up these 500,000 packages or pills or whatever they are, and it's unethical. And I'm like, yeah, but where was Gilead? The leadership of Gilead, they clearly found it was okay to sell it to one person. So where's their conscience? Where were they? Were they asking themselves what is the right thing to do? Give themselves a biblical name of one of the big tribes of, I think, in Numbers, or when Moses was leading them to the promised land, Gilead. And you just say, oh, yeah, we'll sell it to the Americans, or the highest bidder, or whatever. Yeah. And okay, that's one thing. I'm the CEO. My job is to make lots of money, and I'm not busy with ethics. Fine. But then there are 10,000 employees working for this company, Gilead. And you say, yeah, I've got to pay the rent. Got to pay the rent. So I have no opinion about that. Yeah, it's not really good, but I'm not going to talk about it. It's not safe for me. I think really we all want to lead our lives just saying, well, yeah, it's not okay. Or I want to say it's not okay, and I want to rant and rave about it, but there will be no consequences. And I struggle with that personally, because I'm also not sure if I draw always enough consequences. What am I doing to make a contribution to society? Or I go to a march once a year or something, or I donate some money to Médecins Sans Frontières, or does that make me what kind of a moral warrior does that make me?
But do you feel like you're following your convictions in your company, in the work that you are doing or offering?
Yes, I'm very happy that what we're doing is because we're trying to articulate better and better what it is that we want to do, and to also be consistent in that. And so yes, I can make a tailor-made program, but only on my terms. And now we have this internal conversation. We're saying to each other, okay, we want to sell long-term programs, but if people want to buy a short-term program, it is also a way of getting to know us. So they commit to only one workshop. And I'm saying, yeah, but I will only want to really do that with people if I've clearly explained to them that if their intention is only to have one workshop, in my opinion, it's a waste of money, because it's entertainment. It's not going on a developmental journey. So if we've had that conversation, I can maybe still do the work because I'll enjoy it, and I can provide something, and something is better than nothing. But I don't want to be a purveyor of one-shot things, because that's not really what I want to do.
And presumably you don't believe it works either, being the purveyor of one-shot things.
I don't even believe that it's good to be a purveyor of a 3-month coaching cycle.
Because it's not long enough.
Not long enough. I think coaching isn't, of course I would say that because my business is a nice income model, but I think coaching is an ongoing thing. It's like as if you go to the gym for 6 months between when you're 35 and you're done for the rest of the year because you're fit. Nobody would think that was a logical thing to do. So for the body, we think it's ridiculous. For our diet, we also kind of understand that you have to eat a healthy diet on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
But for our spiritual development, we kind of say, it's yeah. So is it coaching or is it mentoring? Is this woman underperforming? Does she need some advice from me? I can do that very well, but there's no coaching. as mentoring. Yeah. And we don't want to invest money in that somehow. And the most of our suffering is here. We don't go to work with stomach ache. We don't have a sore bum. There's nothing wrong with us physically. So we suffer most here, but we're not prepared to spend on that. We're prepared to spend on more food, more comfortable cars, better looking houses. So it's strange.
How do you see a shift potentially happening that help people understand that we do need to spend more on that and less on the comfortable car and the house? Is it just hearing more people's stories?
Maybe is one answer, hearing more people's stories. It seems that we are, maybe, and this is wishful thinking, that we still haven't seen that the material satisfaction is not actually real, because we still believe that if we buy something, that we'll feel better, and if we don't actually feel worse. So by that rationale, we probably also won't feel better if we do buy it. And when we do buy it, often most people have a very short satisfaction, and they're looking for the next thing. So, and I am experimenting with that myself. When I try to do intermittent fasting, I mostly eat something I'm not supposed to eat till 12. I usually eat, or not usually, but mostly when I eat something at, say, 10:30, it's a little bit out of boredom, not because I'm hungry, because if I really stop and say, am I hungry? No, not really, but I'm so used to having...
Yeah, it's habit.
And if we start seeing that there's that actually consumption of material goods is not good for us, and for the planet doesn't care, but humanity will kill itself by doing it, and that we can consume actually things that are non-material or immaterial, that are far more interesting, and we need them far more. We have a spiritual crisis, not a financial crisis. So, but again, you go to a shrink if you're insured for it, or the NHS will pay for it, right? Or if your boss will pay for a coach, but most people won't pay money for going to a coach privately.
Or they will when their life has fallen to pieces, when it's got so bad.
Yeah. But if you look in the, I guess the one that's more alive still, and we appreciate more in the West is Buddhism. I'm sure for Hinduism and Sikhism it's quite similar. It's very alive there, right? So the spiritual world, their spiritual lives are very important. People support their local monasteries by making sure that they can exist to do their work for them, and so they're more connected. And here we've discarded that, partly because it was an institution that was corrupt and did a lot of bad stuff, but it also did a lot of good things, and we've lost all of those as well. And that's quite, and we haven't been able to replace it with anything. So people are searching for all sorts of things, going on yoga retreats and doing meditation, all of which is wonderful. And the ritual is gone. Yeah, and so and then the bridge is between those old spiritual traditions and the work that we do is this, the value of repetition. But it takes some commitment. It doesn't come after 14 times. It probably comes after 1400 times, somewhere in between. But
the other interesting thing about repetition, I remember for a while I had an Ashtanga yoga practice, and in Ashtanga yoga you do exactly the same thing every day.
Yeah, I used to do Ashtanga as well.
It's exactly the same sequence, and what's amazing about it is that because you do the same thing, your body just kind of you just begin, and then your body just goes, okay, now it's this, and then this, and then this, and then 5 breaths, and then this, and then this. And it doesn't require you to remember anything or to create anything. It's like it's a pattern that you let yourself go into. And when you come out the other end of it, your energy is different, you feel different, your body's different. But and it requires effort in the sense of applying yourself to do it. But it's not effort in creating something new.
No, the movement is a meditation in itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like those aspects of repetition where it doesn't rely on me having to think about what to do next. It's something, it's like it holds you somehow.
Well, and I think it's in a lot of places, isn't it? Because also outsiders look at people going to church on a Sunday, and there the congregation is doing exactly what the priest is telling to do, standing up, sitting down, reading from the hymn sheet, doing this, doing that. But you're part of something that is bigger than you, and you are just submitting yourself to it, right?
Yeah.
And Islam is also a submission, right? Is also yeah.
And I compare it to some newer forms of relating practices that I've been in, and what I miss is exactly this. It's like there is no underpinning tradition holding this thing together, and therefore it can go all over the place and be not supportive and be very chaotic and ungrounded and like a free-for-all, depending on who are the most powerful people in the room, who will direct the attention of the group in a particular way, or take all the attention of the group.
Yeah.
And I think, if you've never been part of or had a practice of the kind that we're speaking about, or been in a tradition which carries and holds people over time and has been kind of proven itself over time, then these other things can feel very shallow, unsatisfactory.
Yeah, and you get so much respect for how difficult it is to create when you see it in a place that is light and empty, and when you see it in difficult to penetrate areas of practices like monasteries. You can't really get into it so easily, but when you get closer and you follow a little bit of what they're doing, and when you read about this endless repetition and this patient following of a process, and the people that you meet who are part of it the energy is very stable. They have nothing to prove to you. They're just themselves, which is mostly just humility and simplicity, but it's very solid.
Yeah.
And they are in a way, they're also in service to society, because they give us something that's very difficult for me to recreate. All of that, that total. I mean, I can get up before my kids wake up and have a couple of hours to myself, but the rest of the day I need to drive somebody here. Somebody's crying. Somebody needs support. Somebody needs money. Somebody needs a conversation. Somebody needs food. We are a different kind of a community that is more exposed to the irregularity of life to a certain extent. And straddling that is quite attractive, because you can have, we have 3 meals in a day. That's also a ritual, right? And if you give that proper care and attention, when we eat. There's no telephone, there's no interruption. And we start at the same time, we finish at the same time, we share our day, maybe somebody reads something. You can ritualize also a little bit that. So, I think the repetition and ritualization, I think, are very closely related, aren't they? Because the ritualization gives stability to repetition, I guess.
And how does that, or how could that start to happen in a working environment, in a healthy possible future? one thing I see is this what's becoming pretty normal is the idea of a check-in. You know, I remember a time when people never did that. It was a very unusual thing to do. Now it's becoming a bit more normal that now we check in with each other, which is just, you know, 5 minutes or 10 minutes or however long of just people being able to have land for a second. So that I'm sure there are many practices that and rituals that could be created that would support people's work, because monasteries were also working places. You know, the most important ritual when I lived in a monastic community was the one in the middle of the day, which was actually a 10-minute prayer, where people dropped what they were doing, went into the chapel, said this 10-minute prayer. And it was the most powerful one of the whole day because it interrupted the busyness of like, but I've got all these things, and it would just interrupt and just kind of ground you again in the bigger picture.
Yeah, so on the how, there's partly, also the leadership of not the leader, but all of the people who are part of the collective. And to take the call of making sure that rhythm becomes a reality, I think is very important. And recently I read somewhere, if you want something done, ask a person who prays, because they know what it is to commit and to work within time bites, because they also, when they pray, they take 10 minutes and they do that completely. So if they understand how to do that completely, when they do a piece of work, they also understand how to do that completely with attentiveness, right? And when you pray 7 times a day, like in most of the monastic traditions, everything in between, you have to get your work done. It's not like, oh, well, I'll have a cup of coffee and I'll maybe I'll start in a bit, but no. At 6, I've got to be in church. I've got 2.5 hours. Let's get on with it, So this rhythm also makes your life more effective. And I have to say that I partly struggle with that in this disrupted time. I don't have so much to do. So I'm really holding on to the fact that we have those meals together, and that I get up at 5:30 in the morning to be busy with an anchor in my day. And in an organization, there are not very many anchors. You kind of have to show up, between 7 and 9:30, people can start working. So people come in at different times. You come in, you want to say hello. Everybody's already in a call. There's no moment of there used to be a coffee lady, and then everybody would stop, and the coffee lady said, "What would you like? Well, coffee with white and sugar, please."
Well, there used to be a coffee break.
Have a break.
And
you're entitled to that break. The unions enforced it. Now, you can have coffee all day. Yeah, but you can have coffee all day, but you don't really get a break.
Yeah.
So there was, I remember that one of my employers, there were people who were really fighting for that, because they said, we tell all our secrets to the coffee lady. Where will all our secrets go when we don't have a coffee lady anymore? Yeah, we've got to save money. Are we really saving money? We're saving money, but we're not becoming more effective.
Bring back the coffee ladies across the land.
Coffee ladies. Yeah. Yeah.
The trolley.
And the trolley. Well, it was wonderful. And to stop together for a moment. Yeah. What's wrong with that? There's a famous story about a Swiss bank. A famous story. It's famous in my head. I don't even know the name of the bank. And they had a new CEO, and in the first 6 months, he said, when he started, I said, the first thing I'm going to make no decisions except for one. First 6 months, nothing will change. Don't worry, everything will stay the same. I'm just going to look around. I'm going to, the board is doing their thing, and I will support them, and I'll do nothing except for one thing. He said, there are to be no meetings, under no circumstances, there are to be no meetings before 10 o'clock in the morning and after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and between 12:30 and 1:30, because then we have lunch. That was it. Do whatever you like, go on. That's the only thing that changed. And what happened, of course, that people who didn't have children or family could write emails and do whatever they needed to do in those quiet hours. And mothers, especially mothers, but parents, could take their children to school before 9 o'clock, and they could pick them up after 4 o'clock. And they could then maybe work in the evenings or whatever. And so there were certain windows, and not all of the meetings could be had. Well, so all of the meetings couldn't be had because he'd limited the time that you could meet. And it made the organization happier and more effective.
Yeah.
And I love those examples of people who don't need to create a whole load of work to prove their value, because when you are in a leadership position, you should actually be touching very little, because there are other people who are being paid to do that and who don't want you to take their work away from them. You should give them trust and let them do that. I think we have come to our...
Yeah, we've done an hour. It was great.
Was great.
Nice talking to you.
Yes, thank you. Nice talking to you.
Well, let's see if the coffee ladies come back and the lunch hour comes back.
I need to start a foundation. Foundation, bring back the coffee lady.
Yeah.
They'll probably say I'm getting old.
Well, there's a lot of wisdom, I believe, in seeing that getting older is getting older is stepping into a place where you will say radical things because you don't care anymore. So, for example, if you had a company with all a load of employees, and you had the vision to bring back a coffee lady to act on it, when you're older, you will dare to do things like this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and when I was watching an interview with Wendell Berry, and Annabelle watched it a little bit with me, and she said, you can see that this man who is in his 80s is speaking with a clarity that he has the truth. He's not saying it's your truth, but he has his truth, and you can tell him whatever, but it won't knock him. Yes, thank you. That's your opinion. It doesn't change mine. Yeah, it's all become clear.
Yeah.
So he says it also in a non-aggressive way, in a non-missionary way. It's just, this is how it is. You ask me a question, here's my answer. It's all very clear for me, and it's beautiful. I can't wait to be that old.
And that is, I could do another hour on that, just talking about aging and how we don't respect enough this exact thing that we're speaking about. But maybe another time.
Yeah, that's a beautiful theme. I would love to talk about that.
And it's so important. Every sensible culture on earth respects the older people in its society, apart from where we live, pretty much so.
Yeah. Although we're opening a whole can of worms now. But I also see a lot of people in Western society who don't have much to share, who are quite empty, who are busy in themselves with quite hollow concepts, who are just happy that they've made it to the retirement finishing line. And
why don't we talk about it another time?
Yeah,
I'd like to.
Lovely.
Yeah.
We can set a date, and we can talk about it for sure.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. Have a great day, the rest of it, and we'll set up another time for another one.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.